I still remember the day our team was assembled, huddled around a dusty old map in a cramped, dimly lit room deep within the Antarctic research station. We were a motley crew, each with our own reasons for embarking on this perilous journey. For me, it was the promise of discovery, the chance to uncover secrets hidden beneath the ice for centuries. Our team leader, Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a renowned expert in glaciology, had spent years studying the unique properties of the Antarctic ice sheet. She had become obsessed with the notion that beneath its frozen surface lay an ancient civilization, one that might hold the key to understanding the planet's most mysterious phenomena. As we pored over the map, our excitement grew. The target was a massive iceberg, its calving front stretching as far as the eye could see. We had dubbed it Erebus, after the Greek god of darkness and shadow. Dr. Rodriguez revealed that she had pinpointed an anomaly in the ice's structure, a hidden entrance to what she called the Atlantean Gardens. The team was ecstatic, though some were skeptical. Our resident physicist, Dr. Patel, warned us about the dangers of venturing into such uncharted territory. "We're talking about millions of years of geological activity," he said. "The ice is far from stable." But we were undeterred, driven by a sense of wonder and curiosity. As I looked around at my fellow adventurers, I felt a shiver run down my spine. We knew what we were getting ourselves into, the possibility of discovery or disaster. Dr. Rodriguez handed out assignments, and our journey began in earnest. The next few weeks would be a blur of planning, preparation, and anticipation. Little did we know, our lives were about to take a drastic turn. We set off on January 10th, 2023, bound for the Erebus iceberg. Our small expedition team consisted of 5 members: Dr. Rodriguez, myself, Dr. Patel, Dr. Samantha Taylor, an expert in biology and ecology, and Jack Harris, our rugged, seasoned guide. We had everything we needed: state-of-the-art gear, a wealth of knowledge, and a shared sense of purpose. But as the plane took off from Punta Arenas, Chile, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The vast expanse of the Southern Ocean stretched out before us like an unforgiving shroud. We were about to embark on a journey into the very heart of darkness, and nothing would ever be the same again. We spent the first few days at sea, our plane flying over the vast expanse of the Southern Ocean. The crew was abuzz with excitement, each member lost in their own thoughts as they gazed out at the endless blue horizon. I remember feeling a sense of trepidation, my mind racing with the unknown dangers that lay ahead. Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked tirelessly to prepare us for the journey, briefing us on everything from crevasse rescue techniques to basic first aid procedures. Jack Harris, our seasoned guide, regaled us with tales of his own adventures in the frozen wilderness, stories of blizzards, avalanches, and the unforgiving power of nature. Dr. Patel spent hours poring over data and research papers, trying to predict every possible outcome. Meanwhile, Samantha Taylor worked tirelessly to prepare her equipment, checking and double-checking everything from sampling gear to cameras and recording devices. I watched as she methodically laid out her gear on the small landing craft that would take us onto the ice. A seemingly endless array of instruments, containers, and other equipment that seemed almost magical in their scope. As we sailed closer to the iceberg's edge, the air grew colder and the wind picked up. I could feel it in my bones. We were getting close. The sun beat down on our faces, casting long shadows across the deck as we worked. We were a team of strangers bound together by a shared sense of wonder and discovery. And yet, despite our camaraderie, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being drawn into something much larger than ourselves, something ancient, something sinister. As we approached the iceberg's edge, the sound of ice cracking beneath our feet echoed through the air. It was as if the very earth itself was warning us to turn back. But it was too late for that now. We had come too far, and our curiosity had become a siren's call that could not be ignored. The landing craft made its way onto the ice with a gentle crunching sound, and I felt my heart sink as we stepped out onto the frozen surface. It was then that I saw it, a vast expanse of gleaming white stretching out before us like an endless sea. And in the distance, a dark shape loomed, the entrance to the Atlantean Gardens, hidden beneath the ice for millennia. We stood there, frozen in awe, as the wind howled around us and the sun dipped below the horizon. The darkness closed in, and I knew that we were about to embark on a journey from which there was no return. We had been traveling for days, the endless expanse of water giving way to the icy horizon. Finally, we saw it, the massive shape of the iceberg looming before us like a monolith. The team's excitement was palpable as we gazed upon its sheer size and frozen majesty. Dr. Rodriguez took charge, directing the landing craft onto the ice with precision. As we stepped out onto the frozen surface, the crunching sound beneath our feet echoed through the stillness. The air was crisp and cold, with a hint of saltiness carried on the wind. We stood there, awestruck by the sheer scale of the iceberg, its towering walls rising up to 100 meters into the sky like a shimmering wall of crystal. The sun cast long shadows across the ice, creating an eerie landscape that seemed both beautiful and foreboding. Dr. Patel consulted his maps, nodding in satisfaction as he confirmed our position. Samantha Taylor began to deploy her equipment, carefully laying out the sampling gear and cameras in a precise pattern. Jack Harris took point, leading us through the winding path of ice that would take us to the entrance of the Atlantean Gardens. I lagged behind, taking in the sheer scale of the landscape, the endless expanse of white stretching out before us like an ocean. The wind picked up, whipping our faces with icy fingers. I felt a shiver run down my spine as we approached the entrance, a dark shape looming in the distance like a mouth in the ice. As we drew closer, I saw that it was a massive crevasse, yawning open into the darkness below. Dr. Rodriguez hesitated, consulting her maps and checking our equipment before making a decision. "We'll need to be careful here," she warned, her voice low and steady. "The ice is fragile, and we don't want to trigger any collapses." With that, she led us forward, into the unknown darkness of the crevasse. I followed close behind, my heart pounding in my chest as we descended into the depths of the iceberg. The air grew colder and darker, until it seemed like we were walking through a tunnel of ice itself. And then, suddenly, we emerged into a vast cavernous space, the entrance to the Atlantean Gardens stretching out before us like an alien city. I gasped in amazement as I took in the sheer scale of the place, towering walls of ice that seemed to stretch up to the sky, and a vast expanse of darkness that seemed to swallow all sound and light. We stood there for a long moment, awestruck by the beauty and wonder of this frozen world. And then, without warning, Dr. Rodriguez gave the signal, a nod of her head, and we began our journey into the heart of the iceberg. As we ventured into the icy cavern, our footsteps echoed off the walls, a reminder that we were truly alone in this vast, frozen world. Dr. Rodriguez led the way, her eyes scanning the terrain for any signs of danger or significance. Samantha Taylor followed closely behind, her sampling gear at the ready as she began to collect ice cores and rock samples. Jack Harris took point, his expert knowledge guiding us through the treacherous terrain as we navigated the winding paths of the iceberg's surface. I trailed behind, my camera equipment slung over my shoulder as I snapped photos of the breathtaking scenery. The air was crisp and cold, with a hint of saltiness carried on the wind. We walked in silence for several minutes, our only sound the crunching of ice beneath our feet. Suddenly, Dr. Rodriguez stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes fixed intently on something ahead. "Look," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. I followed her gaze, and my breath caught in my throat as I took in the sight before us. A massive glacier tongue stretched out from the iceberg's surface, its icy slopes glinting like a shard of crystal in the sunlight. The team gathered around, awestruck by the sheer scale of this natural wonder. Samantha Taylor quickly got to work, deploying her sampling gear and collecting ice cores that would provide valuable insights into the geological history of the region. Jack Harris examined the glacier tongue, his expert knowledge revealing hidden crevasses and ancient riverbeds. Dr. Rodriguez consulted her maps, taking note of the glacier's orientation and movement patterns. I snapped photos, trying to capture the full majesty of this frozen landscape. As we explored the surface of the iceberg, our senses were overwhelmed by the sheer scale and beauty of this alien world. We walked for hours, collecting samples and data that would help us understand the secrets of this ancient, frozen landscape. And yet, despite the wonders that surrounded us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unblinking eyes were trained on us from the darkness of the iceberg's depths. As we delved deeper into the iceberg's depths, the team started to notice strange occurrences. Equipment went missing, and disembodied voices were heard in the darkness. At first, we thought it was just the wind or our imagination, but as the events continued, a sense of unease settled over us. Samantha Taylor's sampling gear was nowhere to be found, and when she reported it missing, Dr. Rodriguez suspected that someone or something had taken it. "Where could they have gone?" Samantha asked, her voice laced with concern. "I'll check the storage compartment," Jack Harris replied, his eyes scanning the area. But as he searched, the team heard a faint whispering in their ears. It was a soft, raspy voice that seemed to be coming from all around us, but there was no one in sight. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart racing with excitement and fear. Dr. Rodriguez's expression was grim. "I think we're being watched," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The team exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to make of the strange occurrences. But as we pressed on, deeper into the iceberg's depths, the whispers grew louder, more urgent. It was then that we stumbled upon an ancient temple, hidden deep within the ice. The air around us seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, and I could feel the weight of history bearing down upon me. The team gathered around the entrance, our eyes fixed on the mysterious structure before us. And as we stepped inside, the whispers stopped. The silence was oppressive, heavy with anticipation. We knew that we were about to uncover a secret that had been hidden for centuries. A secret that would change everything we thought we knew about this frozen world and ourselves. As we ventured deeper into the iceberg's depths, the team stumbled upon an ancient civilization hidden beneath the ice. The air was thick with anticipation as we gazed upon a sight that defied explanation. Before us lay the Atlantean Gardens, a lush oasis teeming with life and color in the midst of the frozen wilderness. Twisted flowers bloomed in every direction, their petals shimmering like diamonds in the dim light. Fauna unlike any we had ever seen darted through the underbrush, their scales glinting with an otherworldly sheen. The team stood in stunned silence, our minds reeling from the implications of what we were seeing. How could this be? Was it possible that an advanced civilization had once thrived beneath the ice, only to be lost to the ages? Dr. Rodriguez's voice was barely above a whisper as she spoke, her words dripping with awe. "This is it," she breathed. "This is the proof we've been searching for." The team began to explore the gardens, marveling at the ancient structures that seemed to have grown organically from the ice itself. We discovered intricate carvings depicting strange creatures and mythical beings, their stories lost to time. The air was heavy with an otherworldly energy, as if the very fabric of reality had been altered by the presence of this ancient civilization. As we wandered through the gardens, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unblinking eyes were trained on us from the shadows. But it was a feeling that only intensified as we stumbled upon a vast central chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. And there, at the heart of the garden, stood an enormous crystal monolith, pulsing with an energy that seemed to reverberate through every cell in my body. It was as if the very essence of the Atlantean civilization had been distilled into this single, shimmering entity. The team stood before it, awestruck and humbled, our minds struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what we were seeing. We knew that our discovery would change everything, that it would rewrite the history books and challenge everything we thought we knew about the world. And yet, as I gazed upon the crystal monolith, I couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets lay hidden beneath the ice, waiting to be uncovered? As we ventured deeper into the gardens, the team encountered strange creatures that seemed to be watching them, their behavior unnerving and intelligent. Dr. Rodriguez spotted a figure lurking in the shadows, its eyes glowing with an ethereal light. She approached cautiously, but as she drew nearer, the creature vanished into thin air. Samantha Taylor reported seeing a procession of beings made entirely of ice, their faces twisted into grotesque grins. They seemed to be following her, their movements eerily synchronized. Jack Harris claimed that he had seen a group of creatures that defied explanation, their bodies shifting and flowing like liquid as they moved. "It was like nothing I've ever seen before," he said, his voice trembling with unease. As the team continued to explore the gardens, they began to feel a creeping sense of dread. The air seemed to grow colder, the shadows deepening into abysses that seemed to stretch out forever. They stumbled upon an ancient temple, its walls covered in strange symbols that pulsed with a malevolent energy. The team hesitated, unsure whether to enter or flee. But as they looked around, they saw that they were being herded towards the entrance, as if by some unseen force. "We need to get out of here," Dr. Rodriguez whispered urgently, but it was too late. The doors slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. The team was plunged into darkness, their only sound the faint whispering of voices that seemed to come from all around them. It was as if they were being watched by unseen eyes, their every move being tracked and analyzed. And then, without warning, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating a sight that made our blood run cold. The team stood before a massive, crystal throne, upon which sat an entity unlike any we had ever seen. Its body was a mass of writhing, pulsing tendrils, its face a twisted mask of malevolence. And in its eyes, we saw a glimmer of intelligence, a spark of awareness that seemed to burn with an otherworldly power. One of the team members, Jack Harris, began to exhibit erratic behavior, hinting at a growing unease and fear that spread among the group. At first, it was just small things. He would forget what he was saying or stumble over his words, but as the days passed, his behavior became more and more erratic. He would lash out at his teammates for no reason, and then suddenly become withdrawn and silent. Dr. Rodriguez tried to intervene, but Jack seemed to be slipping further and further away from reality with each passing day. The team was starting to turn on each other, suspicion and paranoia creeping in as they struggled to understand what was happening to one of their own. Samantha Taylor reported seeing Jack's eyes roll back in his head, his pupils dilating into vertical slits as he let out a blood-curdling scream. "He's not himself anymore," she whispered to Dr. Rodriguez, her voice trembling with fear. The team leader tried to reassure her, but even she couldn't hide the worry etched on her face. As the days turned into weeks, the team's behavior became more and more erratic. They started to experience strange visions, seeing things that weren't there, hearing voices in their heads. It was as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling around them, and they were powerless to stop it. The tension in the group reached a boiling point one night, when Jack's behavior finally snapped. He stood up in front of the entire team, his eyes blazing with a malevolent intensity. "I know what's going on here," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "We're not just explorers, we're pioneers. We're venturing into the unknown, and we'll do whatever it takes to uncover the secrets that lie within." The team's situation took a catastrophic turn when their ice bridge collapsed, leaving them stranded in the icy abyss. The sound of cracking ice and shattering wood filled the air as the bridge gave way beneath their feet. "Doctor!" Rodriguez's voice was laced with panic as she shouted to her team to grab onto whatever they could find, but it was too late. The bridge vanished beneath them, leaving only a gaping chasm in its wake. Samantha Taylor screamed as she felt herself being pulled towards the edge, her fingers grasping for anything that would keep her from falling into the icy depths below. Jack Harris's eyes went wide with terror as he realized they were all doomed to spend the rest of their lives trapped in this frozen prison. The team clung to each other, praying for some miracle, but it was clear that help was not on its way. As the minutes ticked by, the cold seeped into their bones, freezing their muscles and numbing their minds. The once clear air grew thick with an icy mist that stung their faces and blinded their eyes. It was as if the very fabric of reality had conspired against them, leaving them to suffer in this frozen hellhole until what? Until when would they ever be rescued? The thought sent a shiver down Dr. Rodriguez's spine, but she pushed it aside, focusing on her teammates' desperate cries for help. There was no one coming for them out here. They were truly alone, stranded in the abyss with no way to escape. As the team struggled to survive in the icy abyss, they began to feel an unseen presence watching them. At first, it was just a sense of unease, a feeling that someone or something was lurking just out of sight. But as the days passed, their perception of reality began to warp and distort. They would catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of their eye, only to turn and find nothing. The air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, making it hard for them to focus on anything but the feeling of being watched. Dr. Rodriguez tried to reassure her team that they were just tired and cold, but deep down she knew better. They were being stalked by something that didn't want them here. One night, Samantha Taylor woke up to find a figure standing in the corner of their makeshift shelter. It was tall and imposing, its presence seeming to fill the entire space. But when she turned on the light, there was no one there. She must have been hallucinating from the lack of sleep and food, or so she told herself. But the feeling persisted. They started to experience strange occurrences. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in strange places. Food would be taken from their rations, leaving them with nothing but empty containers. It was as if they were being toyed with, manipulated by some unseen force. And then there were the dreams, dark, twisted visions that seemed all too real. Dr. Rodriguez saw herself trapped in a maze of ice with no way out. Jack Harris dreamed of being chased by an unseen figure, his feet pounding the icy ground as he desperately tried to escape. They were all experiencing similar nightmares, and they knew that something was watching them, waiting for them to make a mistake so it could pounce. The team's grip on reality began to slip, and they knew that if they didn't find a way to escape soon, they would never survive this frozen hell. As night fell, the team became trapped in a maze of tunnels and chambers, unable to find their way back to the surface. The air was thick with an eerie, pulsing mist that seemed to seep from the very walls themselves. Dr. Rodriguez stumbled through the darkness, her flashlight casting flickering shadows on the ground. She had no idea where she was or how she got there, but she knew they were lost. The team's morale had hit rock bottom, and it showed in their movements. They trudged along with a sense of resignation, as if they had given up hope of escape. Jack Harris led the way, his eyes fixed on some point ahead, but even he seemed uncertain. Samantha Taylor walked beside him, her gaze darting nervously around the darkness. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being herded towards some unknown fate. The tunnels twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the earth. They passed through narrow crevices and vast caverns, each one more breathtakingly beautiful than the last. But beauty was a cruel mistress in this place. Dr. Rodriguez knew that every step brought them further from freedom. And then there were the sounds. Whispers seemed to emanate from all directions, echoing off the walls. Footsteps followed close behind, but whenever they turned to look, there was no one there. The team's nerves were stretched taut as a bowstring, ready to snap at any moment. They knew they had to keep moving, but every step felt like a betrayal of their own sanity. In this labyrinthine underworld, the lines between reality and nightmare began to blur. Dr. Rodriguez wondered if she was still in control of her own thoughts. Was it possible that they were all just pawns in some twisted game? She pushed the thought aside, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. But as she walked, the darkness seemed to close in around her like a living thing. It was only a matter of time before they stumbled into something truly terrible, something that would make them question everything they thought they knew about this place and themselves. The last surviving member of the team finally emerges from the iceberg, but is forever changed by what they experienced. The true horror lies not in the supernatural occurrences, but in the realization that they themselves have become part of the Atlantic Gardens, doomed to roam the frozen wasteland for eternity. As she stumbled out into the bright sunlight, Dr. Rodriguez was met with a sight that made her blood run cold. Before her stretched a desolate landscape, devoid of any signs of life or vegetation. The ice stretched out as far as the eye could see, meeting the gray sky at a distant horizon. But it was not just the physical environment that had changed her. She felt different too. At first, it was just a subtle shift in her perception. She noticed things that were not there before, the way the wind carried the whispers of the dead, the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures in the darkness, the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. It was as if she had developed a new sense, one that allowed her to perceive the world in ways she never thought possible. But it was not until she stumbled upon an ancient ritual site, hidden away beneath the ice, that she realized the true extent of her transformation. The symbols etched into the walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and she could feel the weight of centuries of darkness bearing down upon her. Dr. Rodriguez knew then that she was no longer one of them. She was something more, something that had been born from the very heart of the Atlantic Gardens themselves. She was a creature of the ice, doomed to roam this frozen wasteland for eternity, forced to endure the cold and the darkness that lay within. And so she stands here now, a solitary figure in a desolate landscape, forever trapped in this living nightmare. The wind howls through her hair, the snow falls around her like a shroud, and she knows that she is never truly alone. For in the Atlantic Gardens, there is always something watching, waiting for its next victim. The true horror was not the supernatural occurrences, but the realization that Dr. Rodriguez had become one of them, a creature of the ice, doomed to roam this frozen wasteland for eternity. The team's fate was sealed from the moment they stepped onto the iceberg. They were never meant to survive, and their experience would be etched into the fabric of time forever. In the end, it was not the supernatural occurrences that haunted Dr. Rodriguez, but her own transformation. She had become a part of something far more sinister, a realm where the living were not welcome, and the ice reigned supreme. The last surviving member of the team emerged from the iceberg, forever changed by what she experienced. The true horror lay not in the supernatural occurrences, but in the realization that she herself had become a part of this frozen wasteland, doomed to roam its desolate landscape for eternity.